Hello there gorgeous gamers and welcome back to Pure Play TV, and we've got a review for Still Wakes the Deep, a supernatural horror game from Everybody's Gone to the Rapture developer, The Chinese Room. If you're familiar with the developer's previous work, then you should already have a good idea as to what to expect. But is it of the studio's normal standards, or does this one sink like a rock in the ocean? Well, watch on and find out. It's safe to say that horror games are not my go-to experiences when I'm looking to unwind in my free time, but Still Wakes the Deep offers an experience that isn't too scary but still throws the thrills around while delivering a story worth following. The game takes place aboard an oil rig and you play as Kaz McCleary, an electrician who has gotten himself into a bit of strife with the wife after giving a fella called Billy a good pasting for dissing his missus. In an effort to ride out the storm and avoid trouble with the police, Kaz has managed to get himself a job on an oil rig that will see him way out of reach of the long arm of the law out in the North Sea. Sadly, his wife isn't all that happy with him buggering off for a few weeks, and we learn of this during the game's opening where Kaz is reading a letter from his wife, who, by the sounds of the letter, is considering calling time on their marriage, especially after the stress that Kaz has put on the family. Despite being set on the rough oceans of the North Sea, it's as grounded an opening as you'll ever see in a game. That instant bond with our unlikely hero is forged early on, allowing the game to throw the occasional flashback our way, fleshing out the backstory without ruining the flow. I was genuinely interested in Kaz's life back on land, and those flashbacks served as a brief respite from the horror on board. Kaz's actions soon come back to haunt him early on during the game as he's called to the boss's office, where the captain of the rig, an absolute tosspot called Rennick, lays into Kaz before telling him he's fired and to get on the helicopter and get off his boat. Roll credits? Not quite. Just as Kaz is about to board the chopper, disaster strikes, and from here on out, everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and it begins with one of the crew falling into the ocean and Kaz falling in after him. Luckily, Kaz is pulled from the ocean and survives, but he probably wishes he didn't. It's not a warm cup of tea and sympathy waiting for him back on deck, it's monsters, and Kaz needs to get off the rig as soon as possible and save as many of his surviving crewmates as he can. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything further, I feel like I've already given you too much, but you can probably guess that not everybody makes it out alive, and if you're not careful, you'll die a few times over too. Kaz is not your typical action hero, he's just an ordinary fella, an electrician in a bad situation. Early on during the game, I had the thought that it's a little like Die Hard but on an oil rig. Just swap out the wisecracking McClane for the potty-mouthed McCleary, the German terrorists for the monsters, and the Nakatomi Plaza for the rig, and it's basically Die Hard on a horror boat. There's no combat in Still Wakes the Deep, but this won't surprise those familiar with the developer's previous games. Instead, you have to rely on quick thinking, stealth, and some light puzzle solving to see the end. But bear in mind, these systems aren't all that deep. Stealth is akin to Alien Isolation, where you'll have to duck into lockers or other small spaces to avoid the crewmates who have been turned into grotesque monsters. You'll run, jump, crawl and climb around the rig as the story deepens, often revisiting areas, though they change in appearance as the veiny, glowing organism slowly takes over the ship. It's creepy at times, and I don't mind saying that I played this one in the middle of the day with the blinds wide open. You will not catch me running through the lower decks, being chased by a mutated crew member with the lights off. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the moment-to-moment gameplay, even if it's a bit on the slower side. The overall atmosphere swallowed me up and threw me into the game's world completely. I daren't even pause for a pee. A big highlight of the game is the voice acting. It's not often that you hear a diverse cast of Scottish accents in a video game, and in true British fashion, the cast delivers the drama and even the occasional humour with the kind of authenticity that can only be delivered by a Brit. Only we can make jokes about diabetes and Spock while our mates are being turned into the stuff of nightmares. I actually had a good laugh on a few occasions during the course of the game due to the strong dialogue and the perfect delivery. On the other hand, by the game's end, that bottom lip of mine almost betrayed the stiff upper one by having a bit of a wobble. It's a well-written story, and even though it's steeped in supernatural horror, it just feels proper. But for those who didn't grow up within the British Isles, the dialogue may be the true horror if you're not used to the Scottish accent, and the constant swearing. This is not one for those with delicate ears. Still Wakes the Deep took me about 5 hours to complete, and I didn't feel hard done by come the end credits. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and with its fairly limited range of gameplay, that's completely fine. It sets out to tell a story, and it does so in a concise and entertaining fashion. Mind you, I wouldn't say it finishes its story completely. We never find out the what or the why behind the game's monsters, and I'm not entirely sure I need to. Some stories are best left unfinished, open-ended and left to player interpretation. But if a sequel did rear its head in the future, I don't think I'd mind skipping my household chores for another midday horror sesh. And that is the end of this review. Thank you for watching, it is appreciated, and I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, you know the drill, go on down below, leave a comment, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and give the bell icon a nudge so you're notified whenever we've got new stuff for you to watch. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.